You know that feeling when you wake up and something is different, not in the room, not in your circumstances, but somewhere inside you, something has quietly shifted overnight? That is what today is, not a dramatic announcement, not a thunderclap, just a shift so deep and so real that your body registered it before your mind had language for it. A lightness where there used to be weight, a direction where there used to be fog. A sense, fragile but unmistakable, that something is finally beginning. I want to talk to you today about why that feeling is not in your imagination, about why it is not wishful thinking or the result of a good night's sleep or spring air coming through the window, about why what you are sensing is real and why it is connected to something the sky has been building toward for months. But first I want to ask you something. How long have you been waiting? Not for a specific thing necessarily, though you probably have one of those too. I mean, in a broader sense. How long have you been in that particular state that so many people describe and so few people name correctly? The state of being almost ready, of circling the thing rather than entering it, of understanding what you need to do with extraordinary clarity and still, somehow, not quite doing it. If the answer is a long time, if the answer is longer than you are comfortable admitting, I want you to hear this. That is not a flaw in you. That is not weakness or fear or lack of discipline, though it is very easy to frame it that way when you are inside it. What that state actually is, in my experience and in the experience of everyone I have watched move through it, is a form of deep intelligence. It is the part of you that knows the difference between motion and movement, between activity and actual change, between starting something and truly beginning it. That part of you has been waiting for the right moment. And today, the day the sun enters Aries, the day the Astrological New Year officially dawns, that moment has arrived. I have been watching the sky build toward this for weeks. The eclipses, the retrograde, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, rewriting the foundation of things. All of it has been preparation. The way the earth gets saturated with rain before things can grow. The way a wave builds in the deep water long before it reaches the shore. Today, the wave reaches the shore. And what I want to do in this conversation is walk you through exactly what that means. For the sky, for the three signs that are most directly in the path of this transformation, and most importantly, for the part of you that has been waiting quietly, patiently, and longer than you may have realized, for permission to begin. I have felt that suspension myself. The particular exhaustion that comes not from doing too much, but from being suspended, from knowing the direction without being able to move in it. You can be completely at rest, physically and utterly depleted by this state, because it asks you to hold your own readiness in your hands, hour after hour, without being able to act on it yet. But today, the waiting is over. And I mean that not as encouragement or as comfort. I mean it as a literal description of what the sky is doing. Something has ended. Something has begun. And the part of you that felt the shift this morning before you had words for it, that part was right. The astrological new year begins at the exact moment the sun crosses into Aries, 0 degrees Aries, which astrologers call the world point. This happened today at 10:46 in the morning Eastern Time. In that single moment, the sun moved from Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac, the sign of completion and dissolution and the release of everything that came before, into Aries, the first sign, the spark, the beginning of the entire zodiacal wheel. This transition happens every year, but this year it is carrying something that makes it genuinely different from what we have experienced in recent cycles. At the exact moment the Sun enters Aries, it joins a remarkable concentration of planetary energy already gathered there. Saturn and Neptune are both in Aries, a conjunction that only happens once every 166 years, and which has been the defining astrological story of this entire year. Venus is in Aries, and now the Sun arrives, completing an Aries stellium, 5 celestial bodies in the first sign of the zodiac at the opening of the new astrological year. Let me explain what this means in plain language. Saturn in Aries says, the structures of your life are being redesigned. Not destroyed, redesigned. There is a difference. Destruction leaves rubble. Redesign leaves a better foundation. Saturn here demands that the things you build from this point forward are built on what is actually true about you rather than what you have been told you should want. This is not always comfortable. Saturn rarely is. But the discomfort has a direction. Neptune in Aries, a transit that began in January of this year and will not repeat for a human lifetime, dissolves the illusions you have been carrying about what you are capable of. Not harshly. Neptune softens boundaries between the imagined and the real until you can no longer clearly remember which was which. The version of yourself you have been dreaming about, the one that involves the life you have not quite allowed yourself to fully want, becomes less theoretical and more accessible than it has ever felt before. Together, Saturn and Neptune in Aries at the world point create a frequency that is neither purely disciplined nor purely visionary. It is both at once, rigorous dreaming, practical magic, the commitment to build something real out of what you have only previously imagined. There is also the matter of Mars and Jupiter. Mars, the ruler of Aries, is currently in Pisces, and it is forming a trine to Jupiter in Cancer. This aspect becomes exact on March 21st, one day from now, and its influence is already active. In water signs, both planets communicate through feeling and instinct rather than through strategy and force. This trine creates what experienced astrologers describe as doors that open because you approach them correctly, not because you kick them down. It is flow. It is the experience of effort that does not feel like effort because you are finally moving in the direction you were always meant to move. Mercury, having just stationed direct yesterday after 3 weeks of retrograde motion in Pisces, is forming a trine to Jupiter in Cancer. The clarity arriving in quiet waves since yesterday now has an amplifier. Jupiter expands what it touches. The decisions you make now, the words you finally find courage to say, the plans forming in the back of your mind during those weeks of introspection, these are landing on fertile ground. This is not hype. This is the sky. While the energy of the Astrological New Year belongs to every sign, there are 3 in particular who are standing at a threshold so significant right now that I would be doing you a disservice not to name them specifically. The first is Aries. If you are an Aries, or if you have significant Aries placements in your chart, particularly a rising sign, this is your solar new year in the most literal sense. The Sun is returning to your sign and bringing with it a stellium of planets, including your own ruling planet's energy and the conjunction of Saturn and Neptune that will define the next several years. But I want to speak to something more personal than astrology for a moment. Because in my experience, Aries is often the sign that struggles most with a very specific kind of pain, the pain of feeling built for something and not yet being in it. Aries energy is designed to initiate, to lead, to be first. When that energy is turned back on itself, when the person who is made to begin cannot find the beginning, it creates a specific kind of restlessness that is different from ordinary impatience. It is more like hunger. And if you are an Aries and you have been feeling that hunger, sometimes so intensely, it is hard to explain to people who are watching you from the outside, I want to tell you, the door you have been standing at for months has just opened. Not because you finally forced it, because the time came. And I want to add something to that, because I think it matters. The hunger you have been feeling, that specific restlessness of being made for something you have not yet stepped into, is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that something is right. It is the signal that you have not given up on the version of yourself that was always going to arrive here. You kept it. Even through all the detours and all the waiting, you kept it. That is not a small thing. The second sign is Cancer. Jupiter has been in Cancer since last June and will remain there through the middle of this year, which means Cancer has been living inside an extended period of expansion and growth. But Jupiter retrograde slowed that energy considerably, turning it inward for a season. Jupiter stationed direct earlier this month, and now, with Mercury forming a direct trine to it, and Mars forming an exact trine to it tomorrow, the energy of what Jupiter has been quietly building in the Cancerian area of life is ready to express. For Cancer, this tends to manifest in the realm of home, belonging, and emotional foundation. If something has been shifting in where you feel at home, literally or figuratively, if the definition of family has been quietly renegotiating itself, if you have been feeling pulled toward a version of your life that looks different from the version you have been maintaining for the comfort of others, Jupiter direct in a grand trine with Mercury, and Mars is the sky saying, the vision you have been incubating is ready. You are allowed to build it. I want to say something to Cancer that rarely gets said. Cancer is often described as the sign of nurturing and care, and all of that is true. But what gets left out is that Cancer frequently pays for its capacity to hold others by quietly setting aside its own needs. Not dramatically, just steadily, over time, until the life you have been living has been organized almost entirely around what other people needed from you. If that resonates, the Jupiter trine forming this week is not just an opportunity, it is an invitation with your name on it. What do you actually, genuinely need? Not what you should want. The sky has created space for that answer to matter. The third sign is Capricorn. Capricorn is being asked right now to do something that does not come naturally to it, to let the structure change. Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn, is in Aries, which means the planet that governs how Capricorn organizes its life, its ambitions, its definitions of success, is currently in the most pioneering and least structured sign in the zodiac. This creates a productive tension. The part of you that knows how to build is being asked to build something it has never built before, something that does not yet have a template. What I want to say to Capricorn is this: the discomfort you may be feeling as the old structures loosen is not failure. It is not a sign that something has gone wrong. It is the exact sensation that comes before a genuine redesign. The blueprint has to be cleared before something better can be drawn. And what comes next for you, the vision that Saturn and Aries is making possible with Neptune's help, is more authentically yours than what you have been working toward. Capricorn often carries a particular private grief that is rarely named, the grief of having worked very hard for a long time towards something that somewhere along the way quietly stopped being what you actually wanted. The career that was supposed to feel like a rival, but feels more like a corridor. The achievement that landed and left you looking for the feeling that was supposed to come with it. Saturn in Aries is not asking you to abandon what you built. It is asking you to bring the part of yourself that got left behind in the building back into the picture. That version of you has not gone anywhere. It has been waiting for the structures to soften enough to be heard. That is radical. That is transformation. And it rarely announces itself. There is a version of change that happens to you. Circumstances shift, something breaks, an ending forces the beginning you had been avoiding. That kind of change is real, but it carries collateral. It leaves marks. And then there is a version of change that you choose, where you decide, without being forced, without hitting the bottom, that you are done with the version of your life that is no longer telling the truth about who you are. This requires something harder than courage, the willingness to disappoint the expectations that have been quietly organizing your choices, the expectations of people who know you a certain way, the expectations you have built up in yourself over years. I think about the people I have watched arrive at this decision. It never looks like a breakthrough from the outside. It looks quiet. Someone putting down their phone and picking up a pen instead. Someone saying the sentence that has been living behind their teeth for 6 months. Someone waking up and, for the first time, not immediately scanning the room for evidence that they are behind or wrong or not enough. That is the moment of radical transformation, small enough to miss, large enough to divide a life into before and after. There is a question I come back to every year at this threshold, not because it is clever, but because every time I have asked it honestly, it has shown me something I was ready to know. The question is, what have I been pretending not to want? Because we do that. We edit our desires into more acceptable shapes, less ambitious, less risky, less likely to require us to change in ways that feel exposed. We do it so habitually that the edited version starts to feel like the real one. And the real one becomes a persistent pull, an unexplained weight that settles in your chest before dawn and has no name. What the Astrological New Year offers is not the transformation itself. It is the energetic context in which transformation becomes more possible than usual. Most of the year we are in neutral water, normal resistance. The effort required to change is the effort required to change. What we have right now is different. The current is with us. The decisions we make in the next 2 to 4 weeks, the things we begin, the first steps toward the version of life that has been waiting. These are amplified by the most initiatory energy of the astrological year. The ones who use this energy well are never the ones who take the biggest leaps. They are the ones who take the truest ones. The Astrological New Year is asking you one simple question. What is the truest next step in the direction of the life you are actually here to live? You already know the answer. You have known it for a while. What is changing today is that the sky is ready to meet you there. Before you go, I want to leave you with something practical and small. Before this day is over, write down one true thing. Not a goal, not a resolution. One true thing about where you are and where you most genuinely want to go. Not where you should want to go, not where you would go if circumstances were different, where you actually want to go. The version that is quietly, persistently true, even when everything else in your life is telling a different story. Write it down. Keep it somewhere you will see it. Because the seeds planted in the first days of the astrological new year, under an Aries stellium that includes Neptune's vision and Saturn's commitment, under a Mars-Jupiter trine in water that rewards genuine readiness, these seeds carry the energy of the entire year ahead. What you plant now, you will harvest in ways you cannot yet see. In the comments below, I want to ask you to share one word, just one, the word that names what you are planting in this new astrological year. Not a sentence, not an explanation, just the word. Because naming it, even once, even here, That is the first act of the new year, and you are already in it.